The privateer is not trusted. The businessman is not trusted. The entrepreneur is not trusted. They're looked at as everyone just thinks, if you made money here, you did it in a dirty way.
Dobrodošli u Klice Buntovnice, podcast za poljoprivrednike, proizvođače hrane i ostalih poljoprivrednih proizvoda koji žele podići vrijednost svog rada i svojih proizvoda kroz dizajn, strategiju i suvremene marketinške i prodajne alate. Navedeno nije rezervirano samo za velike brendove, a mi smo ovdje kako bi vam to i dokazali. Samim time što se bavite poljoprivredom, već ste uzeli stvari čvrsto u svoje ruke. Zgrabite još čvršće kroz znanja koja ćemo podijeliti s vama. Dobrodošli u 63. epizodu podcasta Klice Buntovnice. Danas, na naš buntovni način, opet iskačemo iz našeg uobičajenog okvira. Naime, donosimo vam još jedan intervju s Alexom Rogersom, aktivistom, poduzetnikom, osnivačem i direktorom najveće europske poslovne konferencije posvećene kanabisu, ICBC, održane nedavno na Bledu. Epizoda je isto kao i zadnja, to jest zadnji intervju, na engleskom jeziku, pa ako tu niste doma, uključite titlove.
Hello Alex, and thank you for joining us in the midst of the conference. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, of course. And let's start with the questions. Last time we spoke, you said, and I quote, "I'm an activist, and I realized that the best way to be an activist is to be a good marketeer." So, can you share with our audience what being a good marketeer means to you?
Yeah, well, first I'll qualify what I said in that, I was an activist for a long time. And then when I started my first legal cannabis business, I almost felt a little guilt, like I wasn't doing activism, now I'm going to make money off this. But, what I realized is if your heart lies where your heart lies, if you get money and you get success, it actually gives you more influence. It enables you to really influence what's going on. So I think in Europe, Europe is traditionally, the politics are based on the social state, the socialized model. And I think a lot of times people think that if it's a private business, that business people are evil and the government is good. Well, we actually look at it the other way. A lot of us entrepreneurs from America and elsewhere, we don't think the government is efficient, and we are big on giving individual liberty, as small as government as possible, with the most individual liberty and local power as possible. So if you have influence and you're making money, it means you're being productive. Someone once told me money is just a byproduct of a good idea and hard work. And so as I got older, I realized when you're younger, you struggle with this moral and ethical stuff as you're finding who you are, and then you realize who you are, and then once you realize who you are, nothing can change you. It can only enhance you and accentuate one's positive attributes. So by far the best way to be an activist is to also be a business person and an entrepreneur and a marketeer. And if you can understand how to do this, I think the world will see a lot of different. All the good change in the world never came from the governments having some epiphany. The corporatocracy will never be the sponsors of the revolution. So once and I was broke my whole life. Till 35, I didn't have it. Till like 37 years old, I had no money. I'm digressing a little bit here, but I used to travel through Europe in my 20s. I had no job. I had no money. People said, "Alex, you have no job. You have no money. How can you travel all these places?" I said, "It's because I have no job and I have no money." So once I grew up and got a job and became an entrepreneur and made a little money and had a little success, then I is looked upon as a pejorative term sometimes. But for me, power is a good thing if you know where you lie and you're a consistent adult.
Now you have a job. You have money. So why did you decide to make a conference the core of your business?
In Slovenia or Europe in general?
in Slovenia and in Europe and in general, because you had the previous experiences that led you to idea, conference is a way to go.
Yeah.
Why conference?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good question. It all started because I owned and started a big medical marijuana clinic in Oregon 15 years ago, and I would be giving out free advice to everyone. I was a very influential and important community member at that time in Southern Oregon, and I actually helped revolutionize the medical marijuana. I was the first person to advertise medical marijuana on network TV in America, for example. People would come to me for advice all the time, my patients, right? But they'd come to me for, all of a sudden I was getting legal questions, and then I was getting questions pertaining to business as the market opened up in America. And I was, for a while, I was just giving out free advice, and that was fine, but then it got overwhelming. And I had been in the music industry for years, and I had produced many musical events and concerts and stuff since the early 90s. And so I just thought this would be a good marriage of my skills to now produce events that were cannabis industry events. And so the first one we produced was in Oregon, the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference in 2014. And it blew up. You know, I made a whole bunch of money I made so much money on that event. I was like, I will never produce a music event again, because that was really hard work, and you never know if it would go good or bad. And maybe you were the cool guy for a day or a week, but that and a nickel might get you a cup of coffee in the long run. So I started the conferences, and then when I had started a very successful conference in Oregon, the biggest B2B in the state, then I decided pretty soon thereafter that I would start the International Cannabis Business Conference, because I saw a niche there. I had been in prison in Germany for cannabis for some time. And I thought, you know what? I want to go back to Germany. I want to change the law there. I want to create the biggest B2B phenomena, event, trade show, whatever, in Germany. And I want Germany to legalize. And that was in 2017 was the first event we did in Germany. And lo and behold, the ICBC became the biggest, Berlin became the biggest B2B trade show on the continent. And lo and behold, Germany just legalized in a pretty big way. Last April 1st. So I'd like to think that I had something to do with it. So, of course, I want to make money, but it's about the journey. I mean, to think that if someone says, Alex, if God said, Alex, you did have something to do with expediting how quickly relatively quickly it happened in Germany, what better feeling is there in this world but to feel significant, like you have meaning and purpose and hope. That's the main motivator, is to feel significant. And maybe that's ego-driven in some ways, but I think obviously ego is necessary to create and develop, and it's all about how you work with your ego and to never take yourself too seriously.
So the Germany was just in spite.
It was in some ways. Yeah.
I knew it.
It was. I was like, and I have no remorse towards Germany for putting me in jail. I was a stupid kid. I was doing things I should not. That cannabis is a morally reprehensible thing to do, sell cannabis. It's not. But yet, my sister went to Princeton. I went to prison, right? So I come from a nice family. I'm educated. I was just being lazy, actually, and I'm not saying every cannabis dealer is lazy at all. I'm just saying I was, and I had the talents, and I had the acumen, and I had to do other things. And so when I went to jail, it was actually kind of a good thing for me, because it woke, not that I would recommend it for anybody, but it definitely woke me up, and it changed me. I was a late bloomer. I saw that my actions affect not only me, but people like my wife and my mother. And I have to wake the fuck up, and I have to become a man. And I was just a boy up until probably 35 years old. I was still just a boy. And, I think that's okay, because now that I have grown into a man, it took a long time, but I really appreciate the process. And the fact that I was in jail, I have no spite towards Germany. It was more spite towards myself. And I wanted to redeem myself.
Okay, so you ended up in Slovenia. So you are an American living in Slovenia. What did you learn when you decided to expand your business on the new market?
I learned a lot. Things work differently here in the Balkans, and I'm such a shameless self-promoter, and there's no shame in my game. I realized, well, I better tone that down a little bit in the Balkans. Balkans don't care. They don't care who you are, what you are. Just be respectful, be good. They really don't care, and I love that about the Balkans, because what they do care about is what they should be caring about, right? And so I realized that there's a different way to do things here. It made me stronger, even more modest and humble. It's very stimulating to be in a different culture, trying to do this work that I've done in many different jurisdictions. And but what I did know is I wanted to legalize in Slovenia and the Balkans for about 10 years now. And so I've been incessantly thinking about it before I moved back here 2.5 years ago. My family, and obviously my wife is Slovenian, so my daughter, they both have dual citizenship, actually, America and Slovenia. And so I came here, and I just thought, well, this was my pet project, right? This was the place I want to spend the rest of my life. This is where my happy place on the earth. And I thought, well, I want to feel significant. I want to do something special. I want to change, but without changing too much. And I think that's maybe, the Balkans are pretty much perfect. They just need a little bit of tweak, not a big change in the Balkans. You don't need that, but a little tweak just to put everything in place and to make things as efficient as possible. So different social dynamics here, you're not as good team players here in general. There is more this kind of jealousy thing that goes on in the Balkans because you were conquered by about 20 different groups over the last 1,000 years. And you learn not to trust, right? And so what I like to think is I can bring back this idea that, hey, we can trust each other. And I might make more money than you will, but you'll make money too if you come on board, right? And you will be prosperous. So you help me, I'll help you. We have a win-win situation. And the Balkans never do that unless the shit hits the fan, right? When the shit hits the fan, you're always there for each other, right? But the shit's got to be bad. You've got to have a common enemy before you get along with yourselves. So these are little, things that after working so much in the Balkans, in Slovenia, I find this all so fascinating. And I don't judge it. I just try to understand it. And the better I understand it, the better we can work with it and make actual real change and help the Balkans. This amazing area of land on the earth.
So what are some other cultural differences when we talk about business and doing business?
The privateer is not trusted. The businessman is not trusted. The entrepreneur is not trusted. They're looked at as, everyone just thinks, if you made money here, you did it in a dirty way. And I think that is the case here sometimes. But what I see is I don't see businessmen making it in a dirty way. Some businessmen, yeah, because you have the fascistic, inextricable relationship with business and government. And you always have that. But here I'd like to say one thing. There's still honor among thieves here, where I think the rest of the world, we've lost this idea. It's almost a mafioso ideology, and it exists everywhere, especially in big government, right? And right now, there's no honor among thieves. Everyone just wants to suck everything up, get as much as they can as quickly as possible. In the Balkans, they want to suck about 60% of it up, but they're going to leave a little slice also. They're not going to just take the whole pie. You got to regenerate the pie, right? I mean, I say this in a contextual way. I know there's a lot of people listening that are like, are you kidding me? Croatia's so corrupt and they take everything. Don't even think that's true. But I would like to just compare that to the Western system of the American federal government or the EU, right? These are the people that are actually taking everything. And in my opinion, I think we're in an extermination process in the earth. And I believe that humans are being consciously exterminated, right? I don't know how direct or indirect that is, but we know that lifespan is getting shorter, our food is getting worse, our air, the earth is sick. I don't believe in any of the solutions the corporatocracy uses also I don't believe carbon is the main problem of the earth. I believe the petrochemical industrial complex is the problem, and I don't think they should be able to buy this idea of buying trees in India to grow so they can still pollute as much as they want. That is a scam. Whether how bad carbon is or not, that the carbon movement is a scam, and all it does is it kills millions of people. Because if you decarbonize too early, then the poorest people get hurt if you don't have other real alternative solutions for energy. So if you're in Zagreb and you're paying 20% of your income for just your fucking heat, to me that's another extermination factor with energy. So this whole energy thing, like crisis or not crisis or whatever, I could go on a long time for that, but that's not what this interview is really about. But in terms of cultural differences, I don't trust the big government. I don't believe in centralization. I do not believe in top-down governance. I am a constitutional Republican. That doesn't mean I'm a Republican in the American sense. It means I'm a Republican in terms of the Republic of Germany. America is a constitutional republic, and it means that you have a small government. In general, it means you have a small government and you have autonomy in the regions, and they can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want as long as they don't go against a constitution. So if you say you want to kill gay people, nope, you can't do that. That's illegal. You'll be stopped immediately because it's constitutionally clear you can't do something like that. But if you want to legalize weed or have euthanasia or whatever progressive, whatever good for your community, you should be able to do. I believe in I think a constitutional republic is not a true democracy, because think, if you're in a true democracy, then the mob can rule. So if 51% say, we're going to put gay people in jail or criminalize homosexuality or something like that, then that would be the rule of the land. And that's not what I believe in. I believe in you get to do whatever you want based on a document that's created. So we all can't agree. Well, we can never agree on the same things, people, but what we can agree on more is a system, right, of institutions that will filter all these ideas and then come out with a consensus and local control. So this is a huge difference in European culture and American libertarian culture, if you will, or states' rights, classic republicanism. You guys just want handouts. You guys think about is, how am I going to get money from somebody else or the government? And that's not sustainable. That it just means you're not going to figure it out and work hard to go get it. So for better, for worse, you can go back to like the Tito times, right? And Tito was probably the greatest dictator ever, which I don't know what that says, but if you compare other dictators, he is loved by your people still. And the reason he's loved, well, there's many different reasons, but he was one of the only people that could actually come close to creating a socialism that worked, right? There was nothing like Yugoslavia in the history of the world. And so so Yugoslavia has a special place. So if there's anyone who can think that the social system could work, it's the Yugoslavian people, because for a quick minute, they had, 30 years or whatever, they had a system that was absolutely wonderful. And for folks not from Yugoslavia that would be listening to this podcast, one of the great, I think everyone thinks you were part of the Soviet Union, right? Or you were under their rule. Never. And the biggest thing that could be said how Yugoslavia was different to an American is that they could leave the country. You could leave the country. You could come and go in the country. Where in Russia or in Soviet Union, you could not leave the country. It was, a major thing. Me growing up in the 70s and 80s thinking, oh my God, you can't leave your country. As an American, that was just like a horrible thing. And the Soviet Union was a shitty system. And, every system, I think, turns shitty eventually. But that one was absolutely horrible. And, there's a lot of history and why that was and so on. But Yugoslavia had such a rich socialistic history where it really worked to a degree. Now, if you ask certain academics or intellects, did it work? They'll say, no, we didn't like it. We couldn't do what we wanted. We couldn't express ourselves like we wanted. But the majority of the population say it was okay. Because if you look at the gap between rich and poor now, well, it's big. And so if the gap, there just wasn't a gap as much between rich and poor. I'm sure there was party stuff or whatever, but But in general, everybody was kind of had this, he made the system work, this equality, the system of kind of socialism and equality. So if anybody has the right or the propensity to think about, the Balkans do, to say, okay, this was a good system. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the best system. And what's the best system is a free market, capitalist, free market, constitutional republic. And when people say, oh, how could you say that? It's capitalism. It's look how bad it is. Look at what capitalism has done to us. I'll say we're not in we don't live in a capitalism right now. We live in a fascist world where corporations and governments are one and the same. There's complete agency capture around the world with these major corporations. I think Bill Gates is worth 3 times more than, or twice as much as the Croatian GDP, or the same as the Croatian GDP. It's like one man's wealth on the earth. Right? So what does that mean? It's obvious that, I'm not saying you should limit wealth. I don't believe in that. But I say that you should have, it's got to be a spiritual revolution, obviously, that's going to change this. Because if people don't care and understand and really care about their people, then that's a problem. And what's happened in the earth is that the nation state, which was the progression through the Age of Enlightenment, through the land breakup and the rise of the middle class, the nation state was the best thing we got. And it's like a world republic, right? Where each country can do what they want. They have their own autonomy, they're in their own jurisdiction. And now that's changing. And now, like for the EU example, now nation states don't, in Europe especially, do not have the autonomy they had. They have to adhere to this this behemoth the bureaucracy in Brussels, and now you don't have autonomy. So it's not a capitalist system. The point through the whole thing was, do you trust, what type of system are you going to have? And what we really need is you need a system that doesn't allow for agency capture, and then you can have a real free market, capitalist republic economy. That's what we don't have. We live in it's a fascist government. When you say fascist, people think of like Hitler or the Holocaust or something, but that's not what fascism is. Fascism is just an uber nationalism thing. So what we're seeing now is uber nationalism on a global scale. That's what I was going to say. Now I totally remember, is that we would identify in the past, after the Age of Enlightenment, through the nation state. Well, now people identify through class, and they don't identify through their nation. So if you're a Slovenian, you're a rich Slovenian, or you're a poor Slovenian, or you're an educated Slovenian, or you're a non-educated Slovenian, for example. The educated Slovenian is going to relate more to the educated German than the uneducated Slovenian. And in the past, that wasn't the case. You still had this national identity, but now, because of all the aforementioned things I said, people are identifying through class. So people are saying, well, why would we be exterminated? Or why would who would dare, hurt their own people? Well, they're not hurting their own people. You're not their people.
I will just try to connect this with my next question regarding our listeners who are basically small and medium entrepreneurs. So what would you advise to our listeners how to organically grow their business, customer base, on what to focus? Maybe on the things you just said, to focus on local communities, something like that.
I mean, it depends what your business is, right? Like maybe local community is what you need. It just totally depends what your business is. I mean, clearly the number one factor to be successful, whatever you do, is you do have to focus. Just in general, it's hard to have an idea and to see it through, right? Some people just don't have what it takes, okay? But if you focus and stay with something, it always becomes successful. You might have to adapt and change. Don't run into a brick wall. That's maybe one thing I would say to what I see in this culture, in Balkan culture. Like if you say you're going to do it and you do it, and that's very admirable, right? But no, there's a time where if you say you're going to do something and you realize, man, this ain't working, you have to go pivot and find another road, reverse and go down another road. Being adaptive is absolutely huge. Understanding your instincts, your heart, and when you feel like you're doing something the right way, and then having focus and staying resilient, because shit will happen. There's going to be problems. You need to just be strong. You have to be a strong human. I would suggest eating right. I would suggest working out every day. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, I would say you need to find a sport. You need to find some physical activity. You need to find some mental activity. You need to have good social connections. You can't do it alone. You need to connect with great partners. And again, you need to stay positive. And if something's shitty, you can have a bad day. You can have doubt. That's normal, and it's okay to doubt. But in the end, it's all about adapt. When that doubt comes, you just work through it. You go do some push-ups. You go eat a smoothie. You go kiss your wife, and you move forward. And being resilient is the number one thing, and building partnerships and staying focused and staying strong as a strong human inside.
So basically what you're telling is that you must build yourself first from the ground up and then your business.
I really believe that. I think that's a good that summarizes what I said very well. Because it's not worth it, right? Because health's the most important thing. Health's the best business you could do for yourself. So you got to take care of your physical and mental and spiritual health. However you do it, you got to find that balance. And of course, I've been in times where I've been working 16 hours a week for 8 months straight, or 15 hours a week for 8 months straight, weekends, all that shit. And I've gotten out of balance. So I know there might be a time where you just got to crush it. There might be 4 months where you just got to crush it. But now that I'm older, I would say, you know what? Basically, I do a lot of interval training. So I can take a video on YouTube that's 8 minutes long, right? But it's working out for 8 minutes straight. So it's 45 seconds on and 15 seconds off, but it's 8 fucking minutes. But if you do this thing, these 8 exercises, 45, 15 off, after 8 minutes, you'll be sweating, your heart will be going, you'll feel stronger, you'll just feel like a better person. So the cool thing about interval training, it's the most efficient exercise one could do. Interval body weight training is the most efficient, healthy, ergonomic exercise that one could do for themselves to get the biggest bang for the buck in the least amount of time. So that's actually some good advice to entrepreneurs who work hard, who want to work out. But if you go to the gym, you get there, you drive there, then you got to work out, then you take a shower, then you go, no. And maybe being in prison help you with this. But all you need is a tiny little spot. You don't need any space to get a great workout. And so I'm a big believer in quick intervals. And so time management is crucial.
I think that's it. I don't know. Maybe just one last question. Do you think that enjoying the process is crucial for entrepreneurs to keep going and thrive in their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm saying in one way.
Having fun doing
it's kind of what I'm saying, because you want to have fun, but it's not always fun now, is it? Hard work's
it's
not always fun, right? So you have to make it fun. So it's like who you surround yourself with. Just, I would say if you're a boss and you have employees, you have to incentivize your employees. It's not, being a boss is not, sometimes European bosses, they can be real dicks, was what I see. And when they get into a power position, they think it gives them the right to demean or insult or castigate or admonish somebody. And that's something that I can't stand. When you have an employee, you come in with a social contract, you agree to have them for this price and they agree to do this amount of work. It doesn't give you the right to be mean to them, or because you had a bad day to project your shit onto them. They come to the office, they don't have the right to project their shit. Don't come to the office and be passive aggressive or in a bad mood. Get the fuck out if you're going to bring bad vibes into the office or bring a toxic energy. So I think that, you have to have fun, but of course you do. I mean, that's crucial, actually. I mean, I think I typify that, actually. I really do, because I love to have fun, but you have to keep it light. You can't to have fun. You need your support. You need your employees to be happy with you. And if your employees are happy and they like to come to work every day, then it's going to create an environment for you to have fun. But if the toxic energy starts to seep in and you haven't worked on yourself enough to manage people, nothing's going to be fun. So that's why it all starts from the core. Health, show respect. Do not yell at your employees. Do not use them as a crux. If you're a man and you're yelling at your employees, you're not a man to me. You're not. Men are here to protect people, but protect women and children on this earth. That's one of our main reasons. I know our role has been diminished in the future and in the West, and its future goes on, and we've been told that we don't need to do that anymore. But I could tell to men specifically that you have to step up, be a man. And I think this resonates a little bit better in the Balkans than it would in other places. But you have to protect women and children. And any boss that's yelling at a woman or yelling at, just not, men too, but it particularly irks me when a man would yell at a woman, right? So uncool. Like when did that become okay in any situation? So I'm kind of adamant about a lot of these things, and I think you got to create your own environment to do that. You got to take care of yourself. You got to show respect to others, always. And we all make mistakes, and so but when we make a mistake, we have to fucking say sorry, and we have to admit it, and we can't hold it in, Slovenians, not the best at admitting their mistakes. I don't know about Croatians exactly, but
it's similar.
So here's an example, actually. I was on a plane the other few years ago, and we taxied. We come into Brnik in Ljubljana, and we taxi, and we park, right? And the seatbelt sign goes off. And right when the seatbelt sign goes off, people start the plane, it lurches forward, right? I was like, holy shit. So the captain basically didn't put the parking brake on, okay? And he fucked up. Well, this fool comes out the cockpit, when we're all deplaning, and the first thing he does is snarky with the stewardess, like, blah, 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 blah. And I said to the stewardess, I didn't like how he treated her. And he was right there, and I looked at her, and she was right there. And I said, just like a Slovenian man, huh? Totally fuck up and then come and blame somebody else. Because I was pissed. So I said some seething comment. Her face lit up. She smiled at me like I never had such a fucking bright, giant smile at me, And he was right there, and he didn't say anything, So that's just one story. But you make a mistake. You have to admit your mistake. If you don't, you won't develop, and you'll continue to make mistakes. So you just got to eat your shit up, know that you're not perfect, and fucking admit your fallibilities. And you find that the truth sets you free, and you find it's very liberating, and that's what a real man does. So it I digressed a little bit into some man stuff, but I think it's important. I think it's really important, and that's how I try to live my life. So I try to impart that onto others also.
So I agree with everything what you said, but as you said, you now focused on men, but we have female audience also. So what is your advice to female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, don't try to be like a bad man.
Nice.
Be female, and you'll actually, we're intimidated by you guys, actually. You guys actually run shit, and you don't quite know it, but just know that you're powerful, you're amazing, and don't try to emulate shitty men qualities and think that that's what's going to get you successful in this world. Be a woman, use your amazing minds, work, women work harder. Sometimes the Balkans I hear, well, men work harder than women. I was like, that's not my experience. In fact, my experience is the opposite. Maybe if you're on a construction site, men work harder than women, or you got to deal with like heavy labor. Otherwise, in the office, women tend to work harder, and they can multitask so well. So I'd say it's good to find good partners again. And I think men and women are great. We're meant to work together. And the men have certain qualities, and the men and the women have certain qualities. And, just do what you do good as a woman, and don't try to take on male qualities to think that that's what you have to do to survive. And to prosper. My mother was a very powerful woman. I didn't even know that there was sexism until I got into my teens, and I didn't understand that women felt that men were, controlling or what, because women ran shit in my household. So, and my dad was still my dad, and he was a dad, but mom she was just so smart and just so dynamic and so amazing, socially intelligent, that she was able to make me understand that people would always say, do a women's panel, I'll never do a women's panel in my whole life. But actually, we just had a panel here about it now, or it may be going on right now. That's all women. That just happened randomly. I didn't choose to do that. That happened randomly. And so I will never do a women's panel, because that would be insulting to women. So I don't like that type of stuff. I just like bringing women and incorporating women, and I just go on merit. So I don't look at someone, if they're a man or a woman, I don't care at all. I go on merit. Are you a good vibes? Are you a hard worker? Are you smart? Are you loyal? I like all those things. So women, I would just say that I've seen so many successful women that just be yourself, do your thing, don't adapt to anyone's vision, stay true to who you are, and everything will be totally fine.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, you're welcome.
That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was fun.